Hello everybody, welcome to this instruction video. In this video I'd like to show you how to make the Dreamweaver baby blanket. This is my own design and it's a perfect design for just relaxed crocheting, you know, when you're watching your favorite show. So this blanket consists out of bands of different colors, and on the colored bands you have rows of surface slip stitch as a decoration. Now the blanket is too large to really get it well in front of the camera, but it gives you a bit of a feeling of what the blanket looks like. So the Dreamweaver baby blanket. Let's first look at what you all need. So what materials do you need for the Dreamweaver baby blanket? I'm using hooked soft cotton yarn. This is 100% recycled cotton yarn. So it's 80% cotton fibers that are recycled and 20% other recycled fibers, but it's 100% recycled yarn, and it's a relatively thick yarn, so I can work this with a nice thick hook and it works up fast. Now quantities, I have 10 balls of color A, that's the neutral shade here, and then I've got 3 colored shades of color B. For me that's the plum. I have 2 balls of the plum, and I have 2 balls of the ochre color, so these two, and the brown, the chocolate brown shade, I have 4 balls of this, so it's 10, 2, 4, 2. Now this yarn I also have available as a kit in my shop, so if you're looking for this exact yarn, just press the link in the video description. And additionally to the yarn, you'll also need 2 hook sizes, relatively large hooks again, because these are thick yarn, so it works up fast. You need a 5mm hook, that's an H-size hook, and a 5.5mm hook, that's an I-sized hook. So these are the 2 hook sizes you need. Also, if you don't have these hooks, they're also available in my shop. So that's the materials you need, and then of course also extra things like stitch markers and scissors, but those are all goodies that I assume you have. So this is the yarn you need. Then I'll just show you what I'm going to be making. What I'm going to be making in this video is actually a mini version of the blanket. Here's a teeny tiny, oh, it's upside down, a teeny tiny little swatch, this swatch. This is what I'm going to be making during the video. And this is actually shows you all the parts of the big blanket. It shows you how to work these bands. It's only a little smaller, how to work the colored bands, how to work the surface slip stitches, and how to work the border. So it's all on here, but it's just a teeny tiny mini version of the blanket. So I'll show you how to do this, and in the process, I mean, you'll just be extending it, you'll be more stitches, more rows, but you'll see everything you need to know to make the Dreamweaver baby blanket. Let's get started with row 1. For band number 1, row 1, I have the larger hook size of the two, 5.5mm, color A, starting with a slip knot on my hook, and you would chain 111. Now I'm only going to do 11, so it's just a mini blanket, but the idea is the same, just more. So chain 11, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. There we go. So chain 11. Now you would literally do 111. Just a tip: when you've done, for example, 10 chains, just put a marker in there so you can easily, keep track of your stitches. At this point, you're going to change your hook size. So I'm going to take out this hook. I'm just going to replace it with a smaller hook size, so the 5mm hook. And now to continue, we're going to work a single crochet in the here in the back of the chain, and we're going to do that for starting from the second chain from the hook. So this is the first chain, come to the second, and then I'm just going to roll it over to just grab here this little bump here at the back. And if it doesn't work for you, you can use it just here at the front, but this is just a bit neater. So skipping the first chain, come to the second, then roll it over, and there in that little backbone of the chain, work the first single. So that's 1, and then you're going to work a single crochet right up to the end, I've just split my yarn a bit, and that would mean for me 10 single crochets, for you 110. And also if you want to make the blanket wider, just add more stitches, add more chains. And if you want to make it less wide, simply do less chains. So in that sense, it's a very easy pattern to adapt to the size that you want it to be. So I'm just going to do a single crochet in all of these chains, and this is just maybe the slowest row, working in all these chains. I've got 2 more to do. And 2. So I've now got only 10 single crochets. You'll have 110. At this point you can turn for row 2. So row 2, this is where you are right now. So chain 1. Now this is to make the turning easier. And now I'm going to work a single crochet in every stitch. Now this chain 1 does not count as a stitch, so that means here this first stitch there, that's the first one we're going to work. So this is 1. You're going to work one right up to the end. 2, and for me that's only 10 stitches. 2 I've got here. 3, 4, and I need a bit more yarn. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and the last one, 10. Turn for row 3. This is where you are now. For row 3 you're going to repeat row 2, so it's a chain 1 and then work a single crochet on every stitch, and that's actually going to repeat until you've done 20 rows in total. So I'm just going to make a jump in the video, so again, chain 1, turn your work, and then here in this first stitch work a single, and going to work a single on every stitch, and then you'll turn again, and you're going to do that until you have 20 rows. I've now worked 8 rows. You should have worked 20 rows, so you'll have what I have here, but much longer and a bit higher. When you're at this point, you can cut your yarn and fasten off. What I like to do at this point is I just like to make a little knot in here. This is optional if you don't want to, but that just helps me to just really secure this. And it doesn't matter this knot here, because we're going to be making a border here, and then that'll just fall away. So at this point, make sure you have the same number of stitches that you started with. So I started with 10 single crochets, so I should have 10 single crochets here. So there's a chain that doesn't count, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 single crochets. So make sure you have the same number that you started with, and that you have 20 rows, and then that completes band number 1. So for band number 2, you're going to turn your work, so you're going to have your right side facing. So here's where we just fastened off the previous row, and going to have color B on your hook, or if you're further along any of the other colors. What I'm going to do is start with a standing single crochet in the first stitch, and then work 1 single on every stitch. So I have a slip knot on my hook with the color yarn I want to use, and here in the first stitch, so there's that little knot I just made, so really come into that first stitch, just insert your hook there, grab the yarn and work a standing single crochet, and now work a single on every stitch. Just 2, 3, 8, 9, and here's the last one. This here is 10. There you go. And there's the chain one. That doesn't count as a stitch, so we don't worry about that. 10 single crochets for me. For you will be 110. At this point you can turn your work for row 22. So for the next row, row 22, chain 1, and now work a single on every stitch. Again, this first chain doesn't count, so we're going to skip that, then come here to the first actual stitch, that little gap there, and that's the first single, and then again work a single crochet on every stitch till you're to the end. And keep track of your stitches, that you don't accidentally have one more or one less, and especially at the edges, you could accidentally work that chain or accidentally miss the last stitch. So especially at the edges where these things tend to mishap. And now the last one, the last stitch. Here's the standing single crochet. There's in there. Work the last single, and at this point again turn your work for row 23. Now row 23 up to 40 is a repetition of what you've just done. So it's a chain 1, then here in the first stitch a single, and then on every stitch right up to the end. And you're going to be, in essence, oh, my hook just got snagged here. In essence, you're going to just repeat what we just did and create another band of 20 rows. So you've got a white band here, or your base color row, 20 rows. And now you have your first colored row, again 20 rows. I'm going to continue a little bit. I've made 8 rows here. I'm going to make 8 again, and then I'll see you back. So here's my mini blanket at this point. For you I've worked 40 rows. It's not 40, I've only got 16, but so you'll have this but longer, wider. But in essence you're now at row 40 of the pattern. And now we're going to work surface slip stitches. So with a larger hook, so with the larger of the two hooks, the 5.5 millimeters, going to work surface crochet stitches. Now for the first row of surface crochet stitches, going to work them on row 22. Now that's the second row that we worked. So with a larger hook, this first row, this is row 21, so the one here that clearly has these these zigzags. So again, at this point you really want to make sure you have the right side of your work facing. So on row 22 we're going to work these slip stitches. Now here, going to insert your hook from front to back through the first stitch of row 22. I'll just zoom in a little bit more so you can just see that a little bit better. I'll just do it again. So here, this is row 22, this is 21 here, so row 22. Insert your hook, and then from the back grab color A. So this is color A. Just grab that, and this first stitch is always a little fudgy there, and bring it forward. So you've got the loop there, and you've got both yarn tails to the back. And now be sure to work with your long tail. So you've got a long tail and a short tail to the back. Be sure that you work with the long tail that you have. That's the one you've got. And what could happen if you just accidentally open up your loop like I did here, no problem, just pull that back. Now come to the next stitch. So here's where you currently are. Come to the next one, insert your hook from front to back, and then grab that the long yarn. So just grab your yarn from the back and bring it forward and complete the slip stitch. That was one. And you're going to do this for the entire row. So in the next stitch, the back, and complete the slip stitch. And you don't work these too tight. So you're going up a hook size. It'll help you to prevent you from working too tight, but still if you find yourself, you know, really pulling these stitches tight, just you might even want to go up another hook size, because you want these chains to be nice and natural on top. So the entire row, just one slip stitch at a time, just work these stitches, and I'm almost to the end. Now, of course, you'll have more, but I'm almost to the end. See how these slip stitches are taking shape, and I've got one more to go. This one here, because after here, you know, there's nothing. This is where the stitch ends. So this is the last one here. Insert your hook and work that last slip stitch. There we go. Now cut your yarn. And now pull this loop forward. So that means your yarn tail is now to the front. And now this of course doesn't look very pretty. So this yarn tail at the front. So insert your hook from the back and just pull that yarn tail to the back. So just grab your yarn tail and just pull it to the back. Oh, sorry, just there we go. Couldn't get my hook through. And then just pull that yarn tail to the back. There you go. And now it looks nice and neat. So this is what your work looks like. So so here there's like a little edge either side. Don't worry about this. This is actually where we're going to be doing the border. So when we finish the blanket, it'll be only these chain stitches that you see. So this completes the first row of slip stitches. Now we're going to do another one. So we've just worked a row of slip stitches on top of row 22. Now we're going to do the same on row 24. So that's just 2 rows up, and then we do the same here. So 2 rows up, insert your hook in there and grab, it's still color A, so you've still got the larger hook and still color A, and grab your yarn, bring it forward. And now we're doing exactly the same as we just did. So come to the next stitch. So I'm slightly more zoomed out here. I'm doing this on purpose so you can just get a better like general overview of what this entails. You can see it from a little bit more distance. And if you want to see the close-up, go in the previous row. I show the more close-up. So 1 slip stitch on every stitch right up to the end. And almost there. Well, I am. Of course, you will be doing over 100 of these. And then here's my last one. But I'm only doing a handful. And now you're at the end again. Cut your yarn. Open up this loop. So the yarn tail is now to the front. Now that doesn't look very nice, so I'm going to pull the yarn tail to the back. So insert your hook, grab that yarn tail, and then just pull it to the back. There we go. And then it looks nice and neat from the front. There we go. And this idea, what we've just done, I'm going to be repeating that. So I have here this mini little sample of the blanket we're making. Now I'd just like to connect this to the big blanket. So here was, you worked a band of 20 rows in color A, so that's these rows here, so 20 rows of single crochets. And then you worked 20 rows in color B, and you worked a row of surface slip stitches on row 22 and 24. So that's what you did here. So these 2 bands and these rows of slip stitches. And this is where you are now. Now I'm going to just repeat that onwards. So a row of 20 rows of single crochets in color A, and then 20 rows of single crochets in color C. So it's a new color. And then again 2 rows of surface slip stitches. And then again 20 rows of color A, and then 20 rows of color D. And again, when you do a color, so like color D, 2 rows of surface slip stitches. Then again 20 rows of color A, and now you come back 20 rows of color, where we're at C, I believe, and then again 2 rows of surface slip stitches, and then you finish with 20 rows of color A again. So in this way you're building a series of rows, all like these bands, all in different colors. And when you have, so every band is 20 rows, and when you have something that's not color A, you work 2 rows of surface slip stitches on top of that with color A. So continue this until you've worked all 9 bands, and then I'd just like to show you how to do the border, because we're going to do the border with surface slip stitches, and just a few tricks that I'd like to show you. So I'm just going to extend my mini blanket a little bit more, and then I'd like to show you how to do the border. So I've extended my teeny little blanket sample a little bit more, and now I'd just like to show you how to work the border, because here for the border you can actually see there's a very nice clean edge here, and we actually do that by working extra slip stitches along 2 sides of the blanket. So here on both of these uneven edges we're going to work slip stitches, and then we'll actually do the border. So I'm going to show you how to work those slip stitches and the border, and then that will give you just this nice very even edge here. And especially if you look here at the where you do the colors, you can see how nice and regular this is. And then you have this little edge here to the back. I'll show you how to do that. So I'm going to start by working along this rough edge here, a series of slip stitches that we're going to work in later. You're going to do that on both sides of the blanket, and with your larger hook, so with the 5.5mm hook. Now, you want to do this in color A, so the color of the main color of the blanket. But just for the video purposes, I'm actually going to use a different color, and because then you can really see where the slip stitches are. So this is only for the video, so use color A to do this. I'm going to do the same on both edges. So I'll show you one edge, and then you can do the other. So on one edge, start here at the bottom, right here at the bottom. You see here in the first row there, insert your hook in there. So in that very first stitch there, and then just pick up your yarn. And now I'm going to work a slip stitch on every row. So this is one, and then come to the next row there, and come to the next row, and here's the next one. So what you'll notice, so slip stitch per row, because what you notice is if you look at your work, you kind of see these bands here that are repeating. And these are actually 2 rows of single crochets there. So per these 2, want to work 2 slip stitches. If you look here, you see 2 slip stitches on this band here. So per row 1, or per 2, which is easier to see, 2 slip stitches. So I'm going to continue like this. I'll just zoom in a little bit more, and then I'll show you the entire row. So just work one slip stitch per row. And it's quite a stretch. I mean, you've got 9 bands in total, 20 rows each, and of course the first and the last one here. I mean, this has just 1 slip stitch and not 2, because you need to start somewhere. But and here you see the transition. So from color A to color B. So there, that's where to insert. And now here you have the end of the slip stitches. Not a problem, just insert your hook in there. That's right next to those slip stitches. And the next row has nothing. And then here the next row has these slip stitches in it, but it doesn't matter. Just pick up and continue. And all these yarn tails, just keep them out of the way so you don't work over them, just keep them out of the way. Because it'll just make your work neater. If you work over them and they get snagged, then that's actually not going to look nice, because then you get these big blobs of yarn at places where you don't want them. So, and here I'm again at a transition. So here is a slip stitch, and then I just take that yarn tail to the side, and then here's the next one, and then and just continue all the way until you're to the end. And I'm almost to the end of my mini blanket. You'll have a way further to go. I'm just going to finish here in this last row here. Cut your yarn and then do the same as we've done with the slip stitches till now. So I bring it forward and then just insert your hook from the back and just pull that yarn tail. There we go. To the back. There we go. And at this point you can see, okay, so you have just snagged one yarn tail, so I'm just going to pull this free. You want to make sure that all your yarn tails are free, that they're not underneath your slip stitches. If you look at your work from the back, so you can see, so that's why I did it in purple, so you can really see where these slip stitches are from the back. And if you look at them from the front, this is where they are, like so. Now what you've now done on one edge, I'm going to repeat this on the other edge also. So just rotate your work and do the same on this side, that you have on both of these uneven sides, you have a row of slip stitches that we're going to use for the rest of the border. So I'm just going to do this edge also, and then we're ready to do the border. And this is my mini blanket at the moment. So I've made on the left and the right, I've made those slip stitches, and now we're going to start with the border, and well, actually the first complete round of the border. For the border, we're going to start in the bottom corner here, so right where you have made the first chain. There we're going to start. So I'm just going to rotate my work this way, because then that's much more logical. So your blanket is upside down at the moment, and we're going to start there and then work across and then come here and then there and then back again. I'm just going to zoom in and we start there. Round one of the border, I have color A on my hook with a slip knot, and it's the smaller hook, so the 5mm hook. Then here in this first chain, and they're going to start with a standing single crochet. That's one. And in this same stitch, work 2 more. So that's 1 and 2. Now the second one of these 3, that's a corner stitch. If you want to, you can mark that stitch with a stitch marker, because I don't believe I have any stitch markers with me at the moment. No, they are somewhere else. We are now going to work a single crochet across on every stitch, but until there's 1 stitch left, and the last stitch will work a new corner. So for me, this is 108. Sorry, it's 8 stitches only. For you, it's 108. So this is where it just worked. So then come to the next stitch, and because this is a base chain that you're working in, it might be just still a little tight, but that's the reason why we also use the larger hook to make this base chain. So it's easier to work these stitches now. And there we go. So I'm only working 8 singles. You'll be working 108. And got 2 left, and here's the so 3 in the corner and then 1 on every stitch, and there's 1 stitch left here at the end. And here we make a new corner, so that's 3 singles in that stitch. So it's 1, 2 and 3. Again, the second of those 3 is the corner stitch. You can mark that stitch with a stitch marker if you want. Now rotate your work again, and now we're going to come along the edge here where you have the slip stitches, and your slip stitches will be in color A. Mine are a different color, but now you can really see what I'm doing. In every slip stitch I'm going to work a single crochet. So go through both of these loops and I've just split my yarn a little bit, so go through, because you really have to just, there we go, just slide underneath that, and on every stitch, and take your time on this, because you really have to slide underneath these slip stitches, work a single crochet. And this does take some time, because you want to do this properly. So I've now done a few. You will have many more. I'm just going to make a jump in the video. So I've now, so you can see that already just by working this, that most of these purple slip stitches, they kind of just, they already starting to disappear, and if they're in the same color as color A, you really won't see them. And then here at the back you get a little edge. So I'm just going to continue to make a jump in the video and work a single crochet on all of these slip stitches, and then I'll see you back over there. I've now worked single crochet on every one of those slip stitches. If you look into the back, you can see where you have that edge here. So that's from the just rolling over to the back. So that'll just disappear when we work the border. At this point, we're here at the next edge of the blanket. So this is the top edge. In the first stitch, I'm going to work 3 singles. So 1, 2, 3, and a single crochet on every stitch right up to the, or just before the last stitch. The last stitch we work another corner, and again there are 3 singles in the corner. If you want to mark those corners with a stitch marker, it might be easier to find them later on. When I'm at the end of this round, just going to place markers in those corners, because now it's still easy to see where they are. And there we go. And then there's 1 stitch now until the corner, and the corner gets again 3 singles. And I just want to get into this stitch properly, which is becoming problematic because of the slip stitch that's also in there. There you go. Now I think now I've got it properly. So 3 singles in here, so that's 1, 2, and 3. There we go. Now again, rotate your work 90 degrees, and now in every slip stitch work a single crochet, so exactly like we did on the other side. And also here, take your time on this, because you really want to get underneath these slip stitches properly. And if you have them a little tight like I have here, that is a little bit of effort. Okay, well, this one doesn't want to go easily, so I'm just going to pick this one up. So open up, there we go, just open up that loop a little bit. The yarn was just a bit too tight. There we go. Now I can actually get into that stitch. There you go. And then I can just pull the yarn tail tight on this side, because that was just the issue. and likewise go on every slip stitch underneath, so into both loops, and take your time on these and work a single on every stitch, and then I'll see you back when you're here. So I'm at the end of this fourth edge, and as you can see I've also marked the corners with stitch markers, so in the second of those 3 stitches I've just put a stitch marker. But now to the first standing stitch, so that very first stitch, just going to close there with a slip stitch. There we go. And this was maybe the most difficult round of the border. So round 2 is easier. So turn your work to have the wrong side facing for row 2. So I have now the wrong side facing, the back. I'm going to start with a chain 1. Now this is just to turn. And now it's a single crochet on every stitch. So in every stitch work a single, right until you get to a corner. So those are now marked with stitch markers, so it's easy to see where exactly they are. You might just have to roll your work a little bit forward. You can just properly see where those singles are. Continue like this, work a single on every stitch. When you get to the corner, you work 3 in there, but I'll show you that. Almost to the next corner, so I've worked this entire row of single crochet, so if you look at the front you can already see a nice border taking shape. Here's the marked corner stitch, so I'm just going to work 1 single in the last stitch. Now then there's the marked corner, so we're going to remove the marker and then work 3 in here, so 1, 2, 3, and then the second of those 3, that's of course the new corner. And now continue, repeat all the way around. So again, on every stitch you work a single, and when you get to a corner you work a new corner. And repeat this all the way around, so all the way. And here of course you're going to work your last corner stitch, and then you can close here on your first stitch with a slip stitch. So all the way round, and then just close with a slip stitch, and you can turn your work the other way. So this is my mini blanket right now. You've got 2 more border rows to do. So border round 3 and 4 is a repetition of round 2. So simply work 2 more rounds of single crochets, and when every time you get to a corner you work a 3 single crochets in there. And if you keep on rotating or turning, after every round, you'll get the nice same effect that you have here on the front. You'll with these stripes you'll also get that on the border. So repeat round 2 more times, and then when you're finished you can fasten off. And towards the back here, of course, you still have a few yarn tails, so just work away those yarn tails, and then you're all finished. And when you're all finished, your blanket looks something like this. You've got these bands of color, and on the colored bands you have rows of slip stitches. Last thing to do, really block your blanket. You might even consider wet blocking it, so really making it nice and wet, and then just pinning it into place. The cotton yarn works really well with blocking, and it'll just really flatten out and straighten out your blanket. So do that, and then you really are all done. I want to thank you for watching. Brings us to the end of this video, and I hope to see you next time for a new project.